one says the population of New York City increased. I'm going to go ahead and underline increased. What does that tell me? It went up, that it is a growth, not a decay, right? From, and it gave a certain amount to another amount. The annual rate of population increase for the period was about 0.4%. Write an equation for the population T years after 2000, which means we're looking at the initial value for what it was in 2000. The reason they gave you this one, the 2005, is because that's what they used to figure out what percent is increasing. But they were nice and didn't make you figure out what percent it was increasing. They're saying, you know, this is the data we had, and so this is what we figured out. It was increasing by this much each year. So really, you ever remember in elementary school, they'd have you mark out things like information you don't need for a problem? That is information you don't need for this problem because they already gave you the 0.4%. I am not going to give you one on your test where you have to figure out the percent. I will tell you what the percent is, okay? So the formula, I'm going to write it up here, was A times 1 plus the rate all to the t power. That's the formula we looked at yesterday. And what goes in where A is? The big 8 million number, the initial value. So 8,008,278. Remember, you can put commas on your paper here, but you can't put commas into Desmos. And this is 1 plus, and we've got to change that percent to a decimal. So what is 0.4% as a decimal? 0.004. And I know this looks like a capital H, but it's supposed to be 1 plus. 0.004. And all of that to the t power. So this is what you needed for part A. They were just asking you, what is the equation? Now, if you went ahead and added 1 plus 0.004, that counts too. You just have 1.004 right there in the center. Either one's acceptable. Yes? 5 in the place of t would be if you're trying to figure out what happened within 5 years. And that's not what they ask us for A. Well, if you're doing part B and you went ahead and put it in, yes, that will be okay. But if they ask you just for the equation, that means they want you to leave the X value in there. That way they can use it to predict any year. The ones we did yesterday, we only did the part B. So that's why you went ahead and put it in. But if they separate it into 2 parts, you need to write 1 with the variable still in and 1 without the variable. 1 with the number in there. Does that make sense? So if they had just been asking us part B, then what you did would be fine. But since they asked us for the equation, we need to leave t in there. Now it says use the equation to predict the population in 2015. Well, how many years is that since the year 2000? 15. So where do we put 15 into the equation? T. Where t is. So you don't have to write it again, but I'm just going to write it again in case you did. 1.004 all to the 5th power. And then you have to type that into Desmos.
You mean 15, not
15, thank you. I was going off of what y'all said earlier with 2005. Thank you for correcting me. Now, this is population. Can you have part of a person? No. So you got to remember you have to round it. We can't have part of a person. So that is 8,008,278 times 1.004 to the 15th power.
You forgot the plus sign.
Well, I went ahead and added it.
Okay.
But if I had put the plus sign, it would have given me the same thing. And so my number is, and I'm going to leave it up there while I write it down, and then I'll show it to you. It's 8,502,464. Because remember, we can't have part of a person. Now, this is the science part of this, not the math part. But what would cause a population to grow? Couldn't hear. Can y'all speak up louder? This plexiglass really messes. Tourism, bringing people in. What'd you say? Production. Like if you have a new housing development come in, people normally move in, or if you have a new like factory that's built or something where people can get more jobs. Also, like Coleman said, if you live in a place that's big on tourism, that creates a lot of jobs. So as you know, which you guys aren't that old, we have a bunch of people moving into Horry County. There's a lot of tourism in Horry County, so it creates a lot of jobs. Horry County makes a lot more in taxes than like our neighboring county, Marion County, does. And so we even have some people from Marion County that come into Horry County to work because you can make more money here. For instance, teachers get paid more in Horry County than they do in Marion County, which is pretty sad. That means people in Marion County don't make very much at all. So they have a harder time keeping teachers there because the pay is so very low. But if you have more people being born than you do dying, that also creates a surge in the population. What causes a surge in the population with animals? If they have more food. For instance, if they have plenty of prey, normally they increase. If their prey is not there, you normally see the population decrease. So that's your science lesson tied into this. So there are scientists that go around tagging animals. Like, I don't know if we have any duck hunters in the room, but if you kill a duck that has a tag on it and you turn that in, I think they give you like some type of money or something for that, because they are doing research and they have to have an incentive for a hunter to turn in that tag. Now, I don't think you have to give them the duck, you just have to give them the tag. But that helps them keep up with where are the ducks migrating to and all those kinds of things for study. They do the same thing with fish.
You don't have to turn it in.
What, call it in and tell them that you have it and give them the number on the tag. But they do the same thing with fish. They tag fish in the water, and then when people catch them and they have that tag, you call that number and tell them, and they can see like how the fish are migrating in the water as well. So this is something that is used in science. A lot of things I give you, I can't really tell you many places in real life, but this is one, it does get used. So while we are on one that's in real life, turn back to page 7. I haven't forgot about your homework, but I want to go over this while we're in this packet. We are going to look at number 2 on page 10. I think I said the wrong page. Page 10. Page 10. I don't know why I said 7. Maybe because it says chapter 7 at the bottom. I don't know. Page 10, number 2. Now this one, whether you deal with duck tags or all that stuff, is questionable. Every one of you in here, hopefully one day, will work towards owning a house. You might want to be a renter instead of a house owner, and that's perfectly fine. But if you work towards owning a house, you have to take out a mortgage unless you are just filthy rich and can pay for a whole house with all your money that you've got saved up. And so if you have to take out a mortgage, this formula will be used by the bank for you. Now, whether you actually use it or not, I let the bank figure out my stuff. But if something sounds unreasonable, I can figure out on my own and make sure they didn't make a mistake. So it says determine the value of an investment for $2,500 if it's invested at an interest rate of 5.25% compounded monthly. And we haven't seen that phrase yet. So that phrase is what is new today. I decided to stay away from this type of word problem yesterday instead of confusing you with 2 formulas. Here's what compounded means. So if I have a bank account that's not compounded monthly, daily, whatever, the way that works is at the end of the cycle, whatever it is, they give me 5%, if that's my rate, of however much I had borrowed or put in. Compounded monthly means every month they refigure up my interest based off of what I have left. So if I pay some off that month and they refigure my interest, I actually have less that I have to pay back in interest that time. And then before the next month, if I pay some off, they refigure my interest and it goes down a little bit. That's how your mortgage is for your house. They compound that interest. They don't say, okay, over this amount of time for the whole year, you got to pay back this much interest. They base it off of how much you paid, which means if you can make a little bit extra payment one month and put it towards the principal, which is the original amount, your actual bill in the end is going to be lower. So every little bit extra that you can pay each month on that takes a little bit off of the interest you have to pay back, and you don't have to pay back as much in the long run. Yes, sir. Yes, but we're also going to have something else where our exponent is. So look right above this, and on the front page of our packet, this formula is written there, but we're just going to keep from turning. This is the formula we're going to use right now. This is the compound interest formula. You only have to do this one if it says it is compounded. Some of the things stand for the same thing. Like here, P is where we had what letter before? A. And what did A stand for? The initial amount. Well, guess what? P here stands for principal, which is just the initial amount. It's the amount you borrowed if it's a loan, or it's the amount that you put into the account if it's a savings account. Okay? So that is the same thing. So how much did we put in? 2,500. So we are going to put A equals 2,500, parenthesis 1 plus. R still stands for the rate. What is our rate in percent? 5.25. But I've got to change that to a decimal, which means I move it 2 places to the left. So that is 0.0525. That goes where R is, over, and we have a new letter, N. N stands for the number of times it is compounded in a year. So if it's monthly, how many times is that in a year? 12. So we're going to put 12 right there. N stands for the number of times in a year. So since this says monthly, how many months are in a year? 12. What if it said daily? How many days are in a year? 365. So you put that. If it said quarterly, do you know how many quarters are in a year? 4, because quarter means 1/4. So a quarter is 1/4 of a year. And most banks for savings account actually compound quarterly. Like every 3 months in the mail, I get a statement from the bank with my kids' savings account on there, and it tells me how much interest they earn, which is normally like 2 cents. Because 1, they don't have a ton in the bank, and 2, the interest is so small. So they, get like 5.7 cents a quarter or something. So at the end of the year, they've earned like a whole 25 cents with what they have in there. So then we close our parenthesis, and now the exponent's a little bit different. It has 2 letters in it. It has N, which what did I just say N stood for? The number of times compounded a year. So how many times is this a year? 12. And T still stands for time. So how many years is this? 4. So right here on this page where N is, you want to put number of times compounded a year. Once you've got that, it's just a matter of typing it into Desmos. So if you can get the formula in, it is very much like the formula we just had. We just got to divide the rate by how many times a year and multiply the exponent by how many times a year. Because you got to think, it's happening 12 times over a year, so that's why it's divided by 12. And it's happening 12 times a year for 4 years, that's why this one is multiplied by 12. So now we're going to go to Desmos and type that in. And it was 2,500 times 1 plus 0.0525 divided by 12. Oops. All to the... Now, at this point, you can either type in 12 times 4, or what is 12 times 4? 48. So I think it's easier to type in 48, but if you want to type in 12 times 4, you can. Yes, ma'am.
The problem above, it says 3 with the parentheses 12. Is it the same as 12? Is 12 3 in parentheses?
Yes, because 3 times 12 is the same thing as 12 times 3. So the order of multiplication doesn't matter. I don't know why they put 312. They should have put 12-3 if they were matching the formula. But anyways. So our answer here is now this person has $3,082. And since it's money, how many places should we round to? 2 decimal places, because money comes in cents, and that is 2 decimal places. So $3,000, $3,082.78 is how much this person would have now if the bank would really give them this interest rate. No bank around here is going to give you a 5.25% interest rate. If they do, put your money in there. Because what that is that is 5%, 5.25% free money you get every year for leaving it in there.
Wait. What's the answer again?
3,082.78. When I was in college, and I'm telling you this stuff because I think it's something you can use in real life, not because I'm trying to waste your time. When I was in college, I had 2 scholarships. Well, a third one, but one that was just a one-time one, but 2 scholarships. And they paid for my whole school. One of them paid the school, and one of them wrote me a check for the same amount they paid to school because they were both full rides. So if it cost me $5,500 to go to school that semester, they'd write Coastal a check, and then they'd write me a check because it was from 2 different places. So that means I had some money. So I took that money and I put it in something called a CD, which is like a savings account, but a CD, when you put it in, you can't touch it for a certain amount of time without a penalty. So I'd put it in a CD for 6 months or a year, which means I couldn't touch it, but it would earn more interest. And by putting that money in there, when I finished school and I got ready to get married, we had this money that I had been saving and earning interest on, and we used it to buy a single wide for us to move into and to dig a well for our land that we had. And so by putting it in that CD, I earned some free money on interest. Does that make sense? So CDs don't earn you very much now, but if they do, put it in. Let's look at number 4, and we'll switch gears for today. Determine the value of an investment of $100,000 if it's invested at an interest rate of 5.2% compounded quarterly for 12 years. Now, this investment, that might be something like mutual funds, stock markets, investing in a business. Like if somebody wants to open a business and you say, I'll give you this much money for a certain percent of your company. Y'all ever watch Shark Tank? That's what they do. They come to you and say, okay, I'll give you this much if you give me this much of your company in a year. So that's kind of an investment it's talking about here. So let's go through our formula. Y equals or A equals, it doesn't matter. $100,000 is our initial amount. 1 plus, what is our rate as a decimal? 0.052. Divided by, it says compounded quarterly. What did we just say how many times a year that is? 4. Quarterly means 4 times a year. Josh, you need something to write with? And then our exponent, we would say 4 times a year times how many years? 12 years. And then how do we get our amount? Put it into decimals. And for time's sake, I won't make you pull that up. I'll just do it right here. But we'll put it in the same way we did yesterday. So I'm going to delete this and make it 100,000. I'm going to delete this and make it, what was my percent? 5.2. And it's not 12 times a year now, it's 4 times a year. But it's still to the 48th power because it's 4 times 12 just for a different reason. And now this person has $185,888.87. So I will switch it here. So that means over 12 years, this person earned $85,888.87 of free money, meaning they put in $100,000 and now they've got this much more. When you look at it over 12 years, is that much over 12 years? Not really. But if you had another job and this was just a side investment, that's pretty good. But if it's your main job, you're not going to live off of $85,000 in 12 years. You're not going to, unless you still live with your parents and they're paying bills. But if you have $100,000 to invest in something, you've probably got enough money to cover what you got. Like I don't have $100,000 laying around to invest. I got teacher salary too, but my husband makes a little bit more money than I do. All right, so we will come back to compound interest, but now I want us to look at your homework. Then we'll take a stretch break. All right, now remember yesterday I told you if you choose not to do your homework, if you just choose to circle it and make it look like you did your homework, that means you're probably not going to do as well on this common assessment because you're not putting in the practice ahead of time. If you just go off the answers I tell you and you even listen as I explain it, you're going to get a little bit out of that, but not as much as if you had tried it on your own and looked up what to do. I promise you will remember it more. I've got experience at this if you look it up on your own. On the teacher side and the student side, I have experience. So first, the answers are 1, A as in apple, 2, D as in dog, 3, A as in apple, and 4, B as in boy. So before I go to the other ones, which ones of those do I need to go over?
Can you go over 1, 2, and 3 for me?
I'll go over number 1, and then I'll have you try number 2 after I've gone over 1 to see if it explains it to you. Well, if I show you one, you might. So I'm going to use a sticky note since I don't have a lot of room here. All right, so the original problem is -2 square roots of 27 plus 2 square roots of 54 plus 3 square roots of 6. Okay, so if I look at, it is possible, if I had one like this, 3 square roots of 2 plus 5 square roots of 2, these are what we call like terms, right? So in that case, I just add them together and it will be 8 square roots of 2. Do you guys agree? So what we've got to do is we've got to get these to their lowest terms to see do we have any matches, because we don't know if they have any matches. So we are going to make a factor tree of 27 to begin with. So what are two numbers that multiply to give me 27? 9 and 3. And then 3 times 3 is 9. So I put the 3 3s under the radical. And don't forget there was a -2 out front. So I'm just going to write. I'm just dealing with the first term right now. Did anybody meet at the singles mingle? Yes. A pair of 3s. So that -2 is already out front, and we bring the 3 out front. 1 3 is left under there. It does not have a match. What is -2 times 3? -6. You do know. Please stop saying that because you know 2 times 3. So it's -6 square roots of 3 for the first piece. Any questions on just how I did the first piece there? So now I've got to do a factor tree for what? 54. So I'm going to come over here on my sticky note. That's 9 times 6. 9 is 3 times 3. And remember, every time you get to a prime number, you circle it. 6 is 2 times 3. So in my original, it was 2 square roots of 54, so I leave the 2 out front. I put the 2 with 3 3s. Do I have any pairs under the square root? I have a pair of 3s. So that 2 that was already out front has to stay out front. The pair of 3s goes out front as 1. And then I have a 2 and a 3 that are left under there that don't have a pair. So what's 2 times 3 again? 6. 6. And then we got the same thing under there. So that one becomes 6 square roots of 6. So right here at the original, I'm going to put 6 square roots of 6. And the last one already has a square root of 6. So do I have to break that one down? No. So I'm just going to rewrite it here. So I'll give Ray a second. It's copying us. Second to pause. Catch up. Now do I have like terms? Yes. I have these two that are alike. This one is not alike. So guess what? It has to stay out front. But these two I can add together. What's 6 plus 3? 9. And then square root of 6. Now, I do not want to show you these cheat methods, but I would rather you know the cheat method and get it right than to not know and get it wrong. So I'm getting ready to show you, if it's multiple choice and you have a calculator, a little way that you might can cheat the system and figure it out. However, if it's not multiple choice, I can't help you with that. Okay? But if it's multiple choice, you can go to Desmos. And in the first line, you can type in your original. So you've got it in front of you, so I'm going to type it up here because I know I can't show you both screens at once. So it's -2 square roots of 27 plus, and I think I just written wrong thing, plus 2 square roots of 54 plus 3 square roots of 6. Now, what this means is if I add all that together as a decimal, it's 11.65310, blah, blah, blah. And this actually goes on and on and on and on forever because this is an irrational number. And we're going to talk about irrational numbers on another page, probably tomorrow. But this is irrational. So this is what it is as a decimal. So the answer choice is equivalent better be that as a decimal as well. So what I would do is I would go on the next line and I would type in A. I'm not going to erase that. I'm just going to go to the next line. -6 square roots of 3 plus 9 square roots of 6. Is that the same number? Yes. So what that tells me is the original and A are equal to each other. The only catch is if A is not all the way broken down, then you're not finished. But if it is all the way broken down, you're finished. Now, just to show you how this is different, I'm going to type in B to show you that it is not the same number. Okay? I'm not going to type them all in for time's sake, but I will here. B. So if I type in B, it's -6 square roots of 3 plus 18 square roots of 6. You see how that's a different number? So you would know B is not the answer. And you might say, Miss Dix, I'm not doing all that. I'm not typing it in. Well, guess what? For the EOC, you get all day. So if it matters to you to do well in your final, and you're too lazy to get out a calculator and have the calculator do the work for you if you type it in, then you deserve to miss the question. Would I rather you know how to do it the other way? Yes, because everything on the EOC is not going to be multiple choice. But this is better than nothing. Yes, Zacchaeus. The next day, they'll email me your scores. So normally the next morning I get an email, and as soon as I get it, I go find you and tell you what you made. It doesn't pop up when you finish like map testing. All right, so I will go over any questions you have on the others, but I'm going to give you that stretch break first. So go ahead, stand up and stretch.